Hello again. My name is Alejandro Rojas. I'm the Director of Public Relations for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, the largest UFO investigative organization in the United States. And I have another MUFON author with me, John Ventre, the State Director for Pennsylvania. Hello.
Hi, Alejandro. How are you doing?
Good, good. So you're retired and you're keeping really busy writing some books and putting on some conferences out there in Pennsylvania and doing investigations, I'm sure, too.
Absolutely. I retired in April, and I've just completed my third book. And we just completed the Philadelphia conference, and we're doing the Pittsburgh conference in less than a week.
Cool, cool. So with this book, it's called UFOs Over Pennsylvania, which is the same name of an episode of UFOs Over Earth, a great documentary or a television show that featured some MUFON cases, and one episode was called UFOs Over Pennsylvania. So that featured some really cool cases, but of course your book's going to have more than just those cases, right?
Absolutely. I got the title from that Discovery Channel show that we did in 2008, and just seemed natural to write a book called UFOs Over Pennsylvania when the series was called UFOs Over Earth. So, this book has 35 chapters written by 15 different authors. There's 580 pages and 90 photographs in the book. And what's cool about it is the first 24 chapters is all about Pennsylvania. Kecksburg, Carbondale, Presque Island, 1973 and 2008 UFO waves across Pennsylvania. Then the last chapter is on police cases, nothing but police cases that have taken place in Pennsylvania. Then I go into related material. Probably the last 140, 150 pages is 8 chapters written by different authors. We also have different chapters in the Pennsylvania section written by different authors also, like Bill Burns, Tom Carey, etc. But the end of the book goes into general UFO information that I think people would want to know about USOs, underwater submerged objects. It goes into the real alien autopsy story that was written by Philip Mantle. The USOs are written by Carl Fine and Paul Stonehill. And so you get a taste. Well, you don't get a taste. You get all of Pennsylvania for about 400 and something pages, and then you get some general UFO information. And we have a chapter in there on position statements, about 30 different ufologists in the field: Bill Burns, Grant Cameron, Stephen Bassett, Lynn Katai, and they give me their position statement on what they believe on UFOs. Tom Whitmore, John Schuessler each wrote a position statement also from MUFON. And I have to thank MUFON for the information. John Schuessler must have sent me 12 inches worth of articles on Pennsylvania that I used to write the book and do the research by town. And he was very instrumental in giving me a lot of the information that I needed. So this is a cool book. It's my third book. The first 2 was sci-fi. This one is factual. It's 580 pages, 90 pictures, 15 different authors. And I'm so proud of this book. This is just a great book for Pennsylvania.
Cool, yeah, and just for people who don't know, John Schuessler was one of the founders of MUFON, and what's cool about him is he used to be an aerospace engineer. He's retired now, and he headed up a lot of NASA projects, even including some of the projects associated with the Apollo program. But getting into your book, Pennsylvania had some really cool sightings that got some national attention a few years ago, and that's what kind of rocketed forward your conferences and everything. Could you tell us about that? I know that sightings in your book where people saw some stuff over a mall. Could you talk about that?
Yes, Alejandro, it's very interesting. There was a large UFO wave across Pennsylvania in 1973. Then 35 years later, we get another UFO wave across the state in 2008. We had 225 cases in the second half of the year. About 150 of those cases were in Bucks County. And Bucks County, over the last 4 years, has had the most UFO cases of any county in the United States. And interestingly, where I live in Westmoreland County has had the most UFO cases in the country over the last 50 years. So I live in this state that's just bombarded with UFO cases. I think Pennsylvania runs third most in the country for cases and investigators. But this 2008 case really started over Lake Erie. We were getting reports from Eastlake, Ohio, across Wheeling, West Virginia, right across Pennsylvania, and right across Pittsburgh, and across the southern part of the state, and over Bucks County and Philadelphia, really going out into the ocean. So it was almost like these craft were either coming out of Lake Erie and just circling through Pennsylvania and going out into the Atlantic, maybe going over the Arctic Circle and coming back down. I don't know, but we had, like I said, about 150 cases just in the Bucks County area. And 2 of those cases were featured on UFOs Over Earth with Discovery Channel and UFO Hunters with Bill Burns, who actually wrote a chapter and commentary on the Bucks County cases. So very interesting cases. One had trace evidence. We had 2 labs involved. And we came up with boron and magnesium on these leaves where Denise claims that probes were dropped into her tree. And, and I found George Fawcett wrote a book on UFO evidence, and he wrote something called Fawcett's Repetitions. Number 6 in his Fawcett's Repetitions of 25 repeat things that happen with UFO cases. Boron and magnesium, he says, repeats in UFO trace evidence cases. So I found that interesting, and I just actually found that right before I wrote the book and included it in there. We also had a case with Cliff, who had a sighting, and it matched up with the air traffic tower at the Philly airport. And then it gets into the whole thing of getting the radar, and I document that all in there. How the FAA tells us they don't have the records, but they do have the records. And we're able to get the records from the Philly Tower on CD and analyze those. So some real great cases in the book, 2008, 1973, Kecksburg in 65, you have Prescott Island up by Lake Erie, Carbondale case, and then by town. I even broke it down by town, where you have probably about 20 different cities in the state where I document their UFO cases.
And that one at the mall, I know that got a lot of media attention because there were a lot of witnesses, right?
Yeah, it actually was at the Oxford Valley Mall, which coincidentally is where we hold our UFO conference. The one we just had last week was at the Sheraton Hotel across from the Oxford Valley Mall. And obviously we want to do it where the witnesses were and where the people saw it. But yeah, that was seen by a number of people. It actually was seen first by 2 12-year-olds coming home from a swim match, and they see this craft, and it kind of had tentacles coming out of the craft, arms, tentacles, and they reported it to us. We also had police officers in a local town there. This is a great case. It's in MUFON CMS reported. I documented, obviously don't name the police officer's name, but 2 officers, 6 witnesses, and you have to read the description of what he said. He knows the craft that's in the area from the Air Force Base, and he says he's never seen anything like this. And a real good report from a police officer. And that's in the section on police cases. I have about 30 different police cases from Pennsylvania documented in that chapter 24.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think you said at the case at the mall, the police officer stayed anonymous.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah, it was anonymous, so I didn't use his name in the book. But I put what he said about the case and the fact that there were 2 police officers and 4 other witnesses to this UFO. It was an amazing couple of months there, mostly over the summer months, with these cases being reported. Started about the middle of June and just ran through the whole second half of the year with one case after another. They either saw a high-flying star-like object moving pretty fast, or they saw a low triangular craft with 3 lights on it, almost like what you would say now could be the TR-3B, if it exists in our U.S. Air Force.
Mm-hmm. Were there police officers that were willing to go on the record?
Yeah, we had actually, it's funny, the retired people went on record. There was a police detective who was retired, who was in the show, and he came forward with what he saw. We ended up having 3 police officers and 3 retired military that put in cases in 2008. Cool. But, in that case, we tried to get the police. The police officer was willing to come forward, but the precinct and the media supervisor, they really discouraged him and didn't allow him to do it.
That's really interesting.
That's a shame. I mean, we live in a free country, right? First Amendment. So where is it?
Yeah, and I mean it's unfortunate because these are really credible witnesses, and this is an example of where unfortunately they are dissuaded from coming forward.
Yeah. You have a lot of cases where the police do come forward. If you remember the ones in Missouri and different areas where they had multiple police departments calling each other, on their police radios because they saw a UFO going across Missouri, and they all came forward and says, yeah, we saw it here, and you can follow the whole timeline on what was seen. And then you get other instances where I think it's really the captain and the precinct, what their policy is and how they view it. If the person believes in this or had their own sighting, they're going to allow it. If they know, and it's probably they don't know anything about it, so right away they use the typical what's been bred into us to debunk it and not believe it and laugh at it, so they didn't allow the case to be reported. And it's a shame because it should be reported.
Mm-hmm. And then, with putting together this book and looking at these cases in Pennsylvania, do you feel you gained any insight, or is the phenomenon over Pennsylvania just as enigmatic as it was when you started?
Well, Alejandro, every week I learn something else about this. I even have a chapter in there on the Nazi UFO program, which I just filmed with Discovery Canada on Kecksburg. And they asked me to talk about the Nazi program in relation to the Glock and the Bell program, which kind of looked like Kecksburg. So I researched it, and there again, all kinds of information on Kamler, the Bell, Red Mercury. Very, very interesting. So, and that's the interesting thing about this field, Alejandro. The more you look, the more you find. And if this was a courtroom, we could lay out the evidence, we would win our case. And I do lay out the timeline of UFO evidence. And when you follow it, even if it's not even the ancient stuff and the older stuff, follow it from 1942 UFOs, Battle of LA, and forward that on, on how the CIA got involved, what presidents have said, different documents and good cases, and the quality of people that have come forward, generals, pilots, presidents, governors. It's a real phenomenon. There's no doubt in my mind. But it gets you to asking, what are they hiding? Why can't the truth, or won't they tell the truth? There's something bigger to this whole UFO phenomenon.
And finally, you did something really interesting with this book, right? You got a lot. You talked to a lot of UFO researchers and kind of got a snippet over kind of what their feeling is right now about this phenomenon. You have a bunch of those. Is that like at the final chapter of the book or towards the end?
Yeah, that's the second to last chapter. Talks about position statements. And, I hadn't seen something like that done in quite a while. That was something maybe from the 70s or the 60s where you would give a position statement. So I reached out to everybody I know in the field and asked them to write a position statement, and I got about 30 of them back, and all good names. Like I said, John Schuessler, Tom Whitmore from our board, Bill Burns, Grant Cameron, Stephen Bassett, the Dolans. This is the who's who of ufology responded back to me with a paragraph or two paragraphs on what they believe. And it's interesting that some are similar and some are different. I think I would say most of them seem to believe it's interplanetary, but you're going to have to read those in my book because there's a few of us who think that this is interdimensional and not interplanetary. It's really interesting reading. But like I said, 580 pages, 90 pictures, 15 different authors, and I cover not only Pennsylvania, but the whole UFO phenomenon. I got a section on facts that you want to know. Do you know, should you know, is what I titled that chapter. There's the position statements, there's the police chapter, and just a lot of other good information, not just Pennsylvania related.
All right, great. And where can they go to find out more about the book?
Yeah, just simply my name, johnventre.com. It's on Kindle and Nook, and if you want the autographed hard copy, you can come to one of the conferences I speak at, or just go to www.johnventre, with a V like Victor, ventre.com.
All right, yeah, that's JOHNVENTRE.com, right?
Correct.
All right, great. Thanks, John.
Thank you.